Thanks, everyone. I am not a business owner. I'm speaking to you today as president of the Independent Women's Forum, which is a think tank, and we study a lot of these issues. Also speaking to you as someone who used to practice law. I am an attorney by training and used to represent a lot of business owners, large multinational businesses as well as minority and women-owned businesses. A lot of my focus as a lawyer was in the international arena, and I bring this up just a little bit to talk sort of philosophically about the problems with card check. I had the privilege of being in Nigeria when they had their first democratically elected elections in 34 or 35 years. Have been working with Iraqi women and other women in the Middle East over the last few years to teach them about the principles of democracy as we know them here in our country, with the right to vote being paramount and the right to a secret ballot being paramount. As an African American and as a woman in this instance, sort of a double whammy, being from a segment of the society that in this country that really had to fight to get the right to vote. When you hear about the terms of card check, you really have to say, as a black person, as a woman, as an employee, as well as an employer, isn't it possible that the things that we're being told about card check are incorrect? My personal view is that card check is a farce. This is Democracy 101, and what shocks me now is that the very people who are having this debate about card check were all democratically elected with the option, not with the option, but with people having the ability to vote their conscience and to do so in private. It's basically very impossible to do so, to vote your conscience if you're not able to vote in private. And card check, or the Employee Free Choice Act, as it is misnamed, takes that ability away from you. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and really I'm talking today about the negative impact that card check will have on women, on African Americans, on employees, as well as on employers if this legislation is passed. I'll give you a couple of examples. A woman named Karen Mayhew of Portland, Oregon, is a healthcare employee at Kaiser Permanente. She didn't want to be part of a union, yet she and her colleagues were pressured by union officials from the Service Employees International Union, who were conducting a quote-unquote card check campaign. Current federal law requires a government-monitored election before any company can be forced to recognize a union, but Kaiser decided to accept the signed cards without holding an election. Mayhew complained to the National Labor Relations Board and won a settlement requiring a secret ballot election before Kaiser would recognize any union. Karen's experience should remind us that when we are talking about union intimidation, we aren't talking about some theoretical wrong. We already know that this actually happens. If you're an employer of any type of business, whether it is large, medium, or small, if card check passes, you're going to have to be worried about the politicization of your workforce, intimidation, and coercion of your employees. As Karen described, throughout this whole ordeal, my colleagues and I were subjected to badgering and immense peer pressure. Some of us even received phone calls at home. She said further, "I believe this abuse was directed towards me at the request of the union in an effect to intimidate me and have me back down. Union abuses of a wide variety are the rule in card check, campaigns not the exception." And indeed, Karen is not alone in complaining of intimidation and coercion. While organized labor claims that companies intimidate outspoken labor activists, the National Labor Relations Board finds few cases of retaliatory firings. Real intimidation comes from union activists who routinely pressure workers to sign up. Organizers often deceive employees as well, saying that the cards are only requests for information. Consider another example of a female worker. And I'm talking about employees, but if you are the owner of the business that employs these people, it is a problem for you. Housekeeper Faith Jetter filed a claim against the Hotel Employees and Restaurant Employees Union. In her court declaration, she detailed union harassment, calls to her home, intense pressure to sign the card, and of organizers seeking personal information on her. She also maintains that union organizers misled her and other employees about what they were signing. She explained, if this union was going to come into the workplace, I would absolutely want to have a secret ballot election so that me and my fellow employees could vote our conscience in private without being pressured by the union representative. I would also want to hear all sides of the story, not just the union side. Unions don't want employees to hear both sides because too often to their liking, when employees do hear both sides, they vote against the union. If card check is enacted in its present form, once these cards are signed, the employer no longer has a right to go in and give their side to the employees as to whether they should formally organize a union or not. Today, unions must collect signed cards from 30% of workers, and then a secret ballot election must be held. But big labor typically loses if it only collects the minimum number of cards. So union operatives rarely call for an election unless they get far more than the majority of the cards. Even then, they lose nearly half of the votes. That's because employees don't believe that unions serve their interests. Workers increasingly recognize that cooperation rather than confrontation between employers and employees is necessary to increase productivity and flexibility. I was going to talk about the automobile industry and what a lot of people feel labor union contracts have